Hi, my sweet friends, and welcome back to Crochet Every Day with Judy. Today we're reading from Robin Hood, starting with Chapter 5, How Robin Hood Dealt with Sir Richard of the Lea. A few weeks after Friar Tuck joined the gay band of outlaws, Robin Hood, wrapped in deep thought, was leaning against a tree one hot noontide. Presently Little John came up to him. "Master," said the great fellow, "it seems to me you would be better making a good dinner than standing here alone, and a dinner is making ready to which a king might be proud to sit down. One man has brought in venison, and another birds, until we enjoy such plenty that a man may have what he wishes." "True, Little John," said the outlaw, "but for all that I have no mind to sit down to dinner alone. I wish you could seize some baron or bishop or Norman knight, then he should dine with me and afterward pay the reckoning." "That he should, master," laughed the giant, "and however heavy his purse might be when he came, it should be no load in his pocket when he went away." "Take thy good bow in thy hand," said Robin, "and let Much and Will Scarlet wend with thee, and walk up to Watling Street and see whom you may meet." So away went the three outlaws to keep watch on the great high road. First they saw a rich lady riding a beautiful palfrey and attended by several servants pass by. They knew her for the wife of a Norman baron, but the outlaws made no attempt to detain her, for every woman was safe from harm at their hands. Next passed some peasants who were returning from a fair where they had sold their cows. Little John and his companions were hidden among a thicket of hazels and heard the men talk of the silver pennies in their pouches. But they only smiled at each other on hearing the simple husbandmen chatter together, and let them pass. Robin Hood never laid a finger on a poor man's store. Then Little John raised his bow and pointed through the bushes. Much and Will looked and saw a knight riding slowly towards them. At first glance he did not seem worth stopping. His dress was in disorder, his armor was rusty, he had a most forlorn and hopeless air about him. One foot was in the stirrup, the other hung limp and swayed as his palfrey ambled on. But Little John remembered his orders. Here was a knight, and that knight must dine with Robin Hood this day. So he stepped forward and bent on one knee, and with all courtesy begged the knight to stay. "Sir Knight," said Little John, "I pray you come to the greenwood. There you will be heartily welcome. My master has been waiting dinner for you this 3 hours." "And who is thy master?" asked the sorrowful knight. "His name is Robin Hood," said Little John. "I had intended today to dine at Blythe or Doncaster," replied the knight, "but I care not where I eat. Lead on, good fellow, I will come with thee to that good yeoman. I have heard he is a friend to the poor and needy." When Robin Hood saw his men and the knight coming through the trees, he went to him and welcomed the knight to the forest in most courteous fashion, and invited him to be the chief guest at the noble dinner now ready. The knight thanked him, and both of them washed their hands and sat down to the feast. There were steaks and collops of rich venison, roasted swans and pheasants, game pies and pasties made of many small birds, huge flagons of ale, beakers of wine, and flat round cakes of excellent wheaten bread. The sorrowful knight was very hungry, and ate heartily of this good cheer, and when he had dispatched his meal, he looked a little more cheerful than he had done. Gramercy, good Robin Hood," said he, "I have not eaten such a dinner this 3 weeks. If ever you come my way, I shall hope to give you one as good some day." "Gramercy, good knight," laughed Robin Hood, "your promise were poor payment for my dinner here. Surely you do not expect a mere yeoman to pay for the dinner of a worshipful knight. Wherefore I must ask you to put down your purse ere you wend." "That would I do at once," replied the knight, "but I am ashamed to offer you the very little money I have." "Tell me the truth," said Robin. "How much have you?" "No more than 10 shillings in all the world," replied the knight. "Such money as I have is in the coffer slung at my saddle-bow." "Look to it, Little John," said Robin Hood. The big fellow took the coffer from the saddle-bow, spread his cloak on the ground, and emptied the coffer onto the cloak. "The knight speaks truth," said Little John, when he had counted the money. "Come," said Robin Hood kindly to the sorrowful knight, "tell us how you proved to be in such low estate. Your clothes are very thin, your purse is all but empty, and you are very sad. Come, tell us your troubles. Have you been careless of your own interests, or have you spent your money in riot and waste?" The knight shook his head and sighed. "I will tell you all, and you shall judge, Robin Hood," said he. "I am in distress this day for a matter of 400 pounds, and yet 2 or 3 years ago such a sum would have been nothing to me. Now I have naught but my wife and children, and that poor 10 shillings there." "How lost you your money?" asked Robin. "It was through my son," replied the knight, and sighed again. a gallant lad of 20, of high spirit, and greatly skilled in the play of sword and spear. At a tournament where he was jousting, he overthrew a knight of Lancashire, who felt deep anger at his defeat. As my son was coming home, the knight and his squire attacked him in a lonely place, but my son slew them both. Now the knight had powerful friends, and they were furious against my boy. To save him, I have been compelled to spend all my money and to mortgage my land. The abbot of St. Mary's lent me 400 pounds upon my land, and today I should repay the money. But alas, I have it not, and I must lose my home and land and become utterly ruined. And your friends, said Robin, have they not come forward to your aid? Friends, said the knight bitterly. No man had more friends, as it seemed, than I in the days of my wealth, but now all fly from me and take no more heed of me than if they had never seen me in their lives before. 'Tis the way of the world, Sir Knight, said Robin Hood, and looked round on his comrades, whose faces were full of sorrow for the poor knight. All of them knew the rich abbot of St. Mary's, and knew well that land in his clutch was not easily released. Robin beckoned to Little John and whispered in his lieutenant's ear, and Little John went away. In a short time the latter came back with a heavy bag, which clinked as he set it down. There are your 400 pounds, Sir Knight, said Robin Hood. Never say there is no pity in the world. If you have not found it among your friends and the proud churchman who grasps at your land, you have found it among the outlaws of the forest. Count out the money, Little John. The money was counted, and the bag was found to hold exactly the 400 pounds for want of which the knight was so sad. As for the knight himself, he was utterly dumb with surprise and gratitude. He could only stare at the bag and then at Robin Hood, and then turn his eyes once more on the money in such wonder that he had no words to express. Excuse me. When at last he found his voice, he poured out 1,000 thanks and blessings on the men who had saved his home and the land on which he supported his family. His clothes are very thin, master, whispered Little John. Give him a good suit, I pray thee. So from the well-filled storehouse bales of cloth were rolled out, and Little John measured off a length of cloth. And right good measure it was, for Little John used his 6-foot bow stave for a yard measure, and so gave double allowance. And they gave the knight a fresh horse, and a new saddle, and many other things, until he was as gallant and gay as before he had been shabby and sad. When he was ready to depart, he said to Robin, I am Sir Richard of the Lee, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for this most generous loan. Now tell me, when shall I return it, if my affairs should prosper? Meet me 12 months from today in this place, replied Robin, and we will talk of the matter again. So Sir Richard went his way, the happiest man in England. Chapter 6. The Wedding of Allan a Dale. After Robin Hood had seen Sir Richard of the Lee started on his way, he took his bow and rambled through the forest. And as he stood in shelter of a bush beside a forest road that led from one small town to another, he heard a merry voice singing a merry song, and the rich, deep notes of a harp, very skillfully played, blended with the strong, sweet voice of the singer. By my faith, quoth the captain of the outlaws to himself, this is a jolly blade. If his purse rings as golden as his voice, he should be a bird worth plucking. He stood quite still, and presently the singer came into sight. A strolling minstrel, murmured Robin to himself once more, gay enough to look at, but I'll warrant you nothing at all in his purse. The newcomer was a handsome young man with flowing yellow locks on which a gay bonnet with a cock's feather in it was perched. He was clad in a suit of scarlet, and as he walked, he ran his fingers over the strings of his harp and chanted like a lark on a bright May morning. Robin Hood was so pleased with the merry carol of the light-hearted young fellow that he let him pass scot-free. Shame were it to harass one who sings so joyously in the greenwood, thought Robin. He shall go free for me. And he stood behind the bush without moving and listened until the last sweet note, softened by distance, died away among the trees. Robin looked eastward and saw that the shades of evening were closing over the distant woodlands. The night is near, said he. No one will pass again this day, and he returned to the meeting place, where a great fire was blazing in the quiet glade, and the yeomen sat about it laughing and talking with each other. As it happened, the very next morning Robin Hood, followed by Little John and Much the miller's son, went to watch the same road again. After a little time had passed, Robin Hood espied the same young harper, but what a wonderful change had taken place in his appearance. His head now drooped, and with each step he sighed heavily. What's wrong now? Said Robin Hood to Little John. I saw this fellow last night, and a gayer young spark you never beheld. He made the woods ring with his merry song, and now he looks like one who goes to a funeral. Fetch him to me. I would know the reason of this sudden change. So Little John and Much stepped forth and bade the minstrel stand. But the minstrel was no coward. He bent his bow and made ready to beat them off it should they attack him. "Nay," said Little John, "there is no need to shoot. Unbend your bow. We mean you no harm, but our master wishes to speak with you. Look, he stands under the greenwood tree." So they brought the minstrel before Robin Hood, and the latter greeted him most courteously, and said, "Oh, hast thou any money to spare for my merry men and me?" "Little enough money have I," replied the sad minstrel, "but 5 shillings in all, and this ring." Robin took the ring and looked at it. "Why, 'tis a wedding ring," he said. "Aye, truly," replied the minstrel, "and I have kept it for 7 years, and I thought to have used it today. But the maid has been taken from me, and anyone may have yon ring now. 'Tis of no use to me." "Tell me all about it," said Robin. "Here is a change indeed. Last night you were as gay as a bird on a bough, and now you are mournful and sad." "What?" cried the minstrel. "You saw me last night?" "Aye, truly I was gay then. I thought I was about to wed the fairest lass in all the north country, but today my heart is broken. She is to be taken from me and given to a rich old knight." "She has changed her mind very suddenly," said Robin Hood. "Nay," cried the minstrel, "she has not changed her mind at all. She loves me as truly as ever she did. But her friends will have nothing to say to me because I have neither land nor riches. They will force her to marry the old knight this very day." And he sighed again as if his heart would break. "What is thy name?" asked Robin Hood. "My name is Allan a Dale," said the man. "Well, Allan a Dale, I am Robin Hood," said the famous outlaw, "and if I help you in your true love, what will you give me?" "Money I have none," quoth Allan a Dale, "but if thou wilt help me, I will swear ever to be thy faithful servant." "Even so," said Robin, "a good and true man to serve me is more to my liking any day than a purse of gold. Now, where is this wedding to take place?" "At the church beyond the wood," replied Allan a Dale. "'Tis but 5 miles from here." "I know it well," replied the leader, "and Robin Hood will be there." He thought for a moment, and then said to Allan a Dale, "Give me your harp." The minstrel handed it over, and Robin stripped himself of all his weapons and gave them to Little John. Then he whispered a number of orders into the ear of his lieutenant and hastened away. When Robin came to the church, he marched up the churchyard path, plucking at the strings of his harp and fetching out deep ringing notes. This drew a stout figure in fine robes to the door of the church. It was the bishop himself, who was going to perform the marriage ceremony, for he and the knight were old friends and had been boys together. "I thought by the sound of the harp that the wedding guests were coming," said the bishop. "What doest thou here, and who art thou?" Robin took off his cap and bent low before the bishop. "Reverend Father," he said, "I am a wandering harper, and there be those who say I am the best in all the north country. I heard of this wedding and hastened hither to make music on this happy day." "Oh, welcome, bold harper," said the bishop. "'Tis the music I love best of all. Come, strike thy harp, and let me judge of thy gifts." "Nay, not so, Lord Bishop," replied Robin, who, to tell the truth, could only twang the strings a little. "Where I was brought up, 'twould be thought ill luck to begin the music before the bridal procession appears." "Well, prepare thyself," said the bishop, "for here they come now." At that moment, an old, solemn, but wealthy knight appeared at the door of the church, followed by a beautiful young girl. The church was filled with people who had come to see the bridal, and when they saw the bride and bridegroom, they looked at each other and began to murmur what a shame it was to wed this pretty young lass to the withered old fellow. The knight was not only withered and spindle-shanked, but he had only one eye and a great hump on his left shoulder, while the maid was as pretty as a rosy dawn and looked as sweet as new-blown May. But in the presence of the bishop in his robes and the wealthy old knight, no one there dared to speak his mind save Robin Hood. "Well," cried Robin, "many a bridal pair have I seen, but never a worse matched couple than this." "Silence, fellows," said the bishop. "The bride is in the church, and the marriage goes on at once." "You speak truth, my lord bishop," answered Robin boldly. "The bride is in the church, and for all that is yet come and gone, she shall choose her own dear." "Prate not, fellow," cried the bishop angrily, "but strike up your music as the bride goes to the altar." "Aye, that I will," laughed Robin, "but I must confess one thing to you. I love the horn better than the harp." And saying this, Robin pulled his bugle horn from under his cloak. He put the horn to his lips and blew 3 shrill blasts. In an instant, it seemed, 24 bowmen came running over the lea, and at their head, as they entered the churchyard, was Allan a Dale. What an uproar and confusion there was when the 24 archers burst in at the church door. The bishop was purple with rage, and the old knight shook with rage and fear mingled, for he saw the bride make one rush to the side of Allan a Dale, and saw, too, that the minstrel had a strong band of friends. Then all eyes were turned on the mysterious harper whose bugle call had brought about this strange turn of affairs. Robin lifted his hand, and for a moment there was silence in the church, for all wished to hear what he had to say. "Allan a Dale," said the outlaw, "this maid is thy true love, as I hear say." "She is, master," cried Allan a Dale. "Then," went on Robin, "if she is willing to wed thee, the wedding shall go on with a change of swains." "Who art thou," roared the bishop, "to come hither in the guise of a harping knave and give orders like a king?" "A true word, bishop," replied the outlaw quietly. "King am I among these stout bowmen, and men call me Robin Hood." Robin Hood! The sound of that famous name struck everyone dumb with surprise. The people in the church stared at the great outlaw with all their eyes, and the bishop and the knight were as silent from fear. "Now, bishop," went on Robin, "I bid you marry these young folk who have plighted their troth to each other." "That I will not," cried the bishop angrily. "For one thing, they have not been asked in church, and that must be done 3 times by the law of the land, as thou well knowest, Robin Hood." "True, bishop," replied the outlaw. "It must be done, and it shall be done at once." "Cry them 3 times at once, Lord Bishop." "That I will not," roared the bishop. "And you will not," calmly replied Robin. "I must e'en make a bishop of mine own. Pluck off his gown." He pointed to the bishop, and the great man's gown was plucked off at once by 2 stout bowmen. "'Tis the cowl that makes the monk, and the cope that makes the bishop," quoth Robin Hood laughingly. "Now, Little John, don the bishop's robe at once and take his place." Little John grinned and put the bishop's robe on. He looked so queer in it that everyone began to laugh. "Now up with thee, and cry this young couple in church the 3 times needed," said his master, and Little John went into the choir. All the lookers-on shouted with laughter when they saw Little John in the bishop's robe and the bishop's place, crying the names of the young people in church, for he did it so comically and cut such an odd figure in his churchman's dress. Little John took his task very earnestly, and for fear 3 times should not be enough, he went on and on until he had cried them 7 times amid great merriment. Then Robin called on him to come down and turn to the bishop. "Now, Lord Bishop," he said, "choose ye, and choose quickly. Will ye marry these true lovers, or come to the greenwood with me as a prisoner?" The bishop shook in his shoes at the idea of being carried off to Sherwood as a captive, and quickly agreed to perform the marriage. And when it came to the question, "Who gives this maid?" Robin Hood cried out, "That do I, and he that takes her from Allan a Dale, full dearly he shall her buy." And so Allan a Dale and his true love were married by the bishop, who did not wish to do so, and in face of the knight, who trembled with rage to see his bride taken before his very eyes. But none durst lift a finger against the mighty outlaw and his band of chosen archers. We'll stop there for today and start tomorrow with Chapter 7. Thank you. Bye-bye.